Edelyn Clawthorne, better known as Eda the Owl Lady, is one of the three main characters of Disney's cartoon The Owl House, and is notable due to her portrayal of chronic illness through the fantastical metaphor of the curse she received as a child. While the curse doesn't correlate directly with any one chronic illness in the real world, it is still notable for how she's portrayed as an independent, competent adult living with her illness. In this video, we aim to analyze her portrayal of chronically ill living through the lenses of disability studies, family systems theory, and film studies. But first, a brief overview of the show and character in question. The Owl House takes place in the fictional Boiling Isles, where witches and demons live. Eda the Owl Lady is a fugitive who opposes the laws that would force her to join a singular coven and place restrictions on her, and as such is characterized by the rebellious wild child attitude that she's carried into her middle age. When she was a teenager about to graduate from school, though, she was placed under a curse. The curse of the Owl Beast, which turns her into a creature called the Owl Beast if she neglects to take her daily elixirs, a stand-in for medication. And it worsens through Season 1 as she develops a tolerance to the elixir. At the end of Season 1, her sister Lilith takes on half the curse, leading to both sisters being affected. The split curse is no longer progressive, but it drains both witches of magic, leaving them unable to cast spells for the remainder of their lives. With that out of the way, the first lens through which we can analyze Eda's curse as chronic illness is disability studies. Disability studies is the field that focuses on ableism and social justice for those who are disabled. Chronic illnesses can be understood as a type of disability, though this can also be somewhat tricky ground. Disability scholar Susan Wendell draws a distinction between the healthy disabled and the unhealthy disabled. Many disabled people are not sick and resent that categorization due to historical emphasis on curing disability, rather than acknowledging the social barriers that more meaningfully impact their lives. However, chronic illness is oftentimes disabling according to the social model of disability, and as such, disability studies remains relevant to the discussion. To continue defining terms, the social model defines disability not just as something a person is, but as something that's done to them. It's a relationship between an individual and a society, where society expects an ability it perceives as normal and constructs itself in a way that refuses to care for those who lack it. In this sense, one can understand Eda as disabled. Throughout Season 1, Eda is shown to have a degree of chronic fatigue, often needing a high amount of rest after magically exerting herself, and being somewhat physically limited by her access to elixirs to manage her condition. Additionally, starting in Season 2, she's unable to cast magic spells the normal way witches do. That's a disabling feature for a witch in the Boiling Isles, where magic is normal and expected, and she needs to relearn how to cast spells in the way Luz, a human who once had similar struggles with her inability to naturally perform magic, does. One key way that this is shown to be disabling is in Eda and her sister Lilith's employment status in Season 2. Eda has always been officially unemployed, but her lack of magic does affect her ability to scavenge and take odd jobs the way she would back in Season 1, and it weakened her to the point of having her bounty rescinded. It's even more noticeable for Lilith. While she would have lost her position as head of the Emperor's Coven for treason regardless, she also lost the spellcasting abilities that previously were definitive of her position. If she was affected by the curse spontaneously, she still would have lost her job. And while both Eda and Lilith quickly set to learning how to cast spells with glyphs like Luz the Human does, it's still a noticeable impairment compared to Season 1. They still essentially need to relearn how to live their lives. Another aspect of Eda's living with chronic illness is how it affects her relationship with her ex-partner, Rain Whispers. She and Rain were friends in school, and began dating afterwards, but they broke up because of Eda's repeated tendency to hide her problems and act like nothing was wrong. This mirrors issues real-life couples can face when one partner is chronically ill or otherwise disabled. One study by Rosie Shrout found that couples experiencing chronic illness report noticeably higher satisfaction when they operate dyadically, seeing the illness as a shared circumstance for the two to manage together, rather than as an individual issue to be managed independently. This is illustrated throughout Eda's development across the show, with one of the repeated themes being exemplified with a quote,
"Us weirdos have to stick together, you know?"
Learning to rely on the people around her more is a key part of Eda's character growth, and she and Rain do end up back together once she's learned that lesson. This all relates back to the issue of disability justice for chronic illness and the social model of disability. Chronic illnesses, along with their disabling aspects, are not simply individualized medical issues. They're complex sets of circumstances to be acknowledged and accommodated for the sake of improving circumstances for everyone. Eda and Rain's relationship isn't the only portrayal of dysfunction relating to the curse, though. There's also special care and attention put into the dynamics of the Clawthorne family as a whole. This can be analyzed through the lens of family systems theory, which focuses on the relationships between family members, the roles they play, and how they operate as a unit. Chronic illness is relevant to the field because it's something that can heavily disrupt the operations of a family system, and having a strong adaptive system can help make existing with the illness easier for all involved parties. One study by Arstedt et al. Studied the impacts it can have and found two themes: co-creating a context for living with illness, and co-creating alternative ways for everyday life. With both themes, the emphasis is on collaboration, as well as trying to find a newer, healthier system for everyone, something Eda's family lacks at the start of the show. One episode that deals very heavily with the relationships between the Clawthorns in relation to the curse is episode 4 of Season 2, Keeping Up Appearances. In the episode, Ida's mother Gwendolyn shows up at her house unannounced, with promises of a new holistic cure, as it turns out she does annually. Ida considers Gwen unwelcome, which shocks Lilith, who's been neglected by their mother ever since Ida's diagnosis. This dysfunction becomes identified as Gwen's refusal to accept the change in her daughter's life, constantly trying to fix her instead of respecting the life she actually lives. In fact, Gwen apologizing for her mistreatment of her daughters is what helps Ida stop running from her own fear of her illness and reach homeostasis, showcasing how important family systems can be when it comes to how problems are understood and managed. Additionally, while Ida is the primary focus of this video, Lilith is also worthy of focus here. She was the one who initially cursed Ida back when they were in school as a result of their sibling rivalry, and at the beginning of the series, her primary motivation was to convince Ida to join the Emperor's Coven, because her boss, Emperor Belos, promised to heal the curse if she did. However, that was always a lie. The curse was incurable, and Belos was simply manipulating her. Ida's path to true healing and recovery only began when Lilith took responsibility for her actions as a child and split the burden of the curse with Ida, which showcases what was previously discussed about the efficacy of sharing those struggles. Once that rift is healed, you can see more of the dynamics they had as children before the curse. They're opposite in many ways, and have a strong case of sibling rivalry, but they deeply love each other as sisters. Another part of Lilith's role in the system is that, as the healthy daughter, when Edelyn took on the role for their mother as the ill child to be doted upon and babied, Lilith took on the role of the competent child who didn't need parental assistance or attention, since she, of course, was healthy. When Lilith found out Ida was still receiving regular visits from Gwen, she became really depressed about how absent she'd been ever since the diagnosis. It was so bad that Gwen didn't even know Lilith was also cursed until later in the episode when it was specifically pointed out to her. Gwen's incessant doting on Ida was dysfunctional on all accounts. For Ida, it was patronizing and made her feel ashamed. For Lilith, it was damagingly neglectful. And even for Gwendolyn, it was financially burdensome and only served to push her children away. The healing of their family comes not only from Ida's independence and illness being accepted and respected, but also from Lilith going to live with her parents again to make up for lost time. This brings us to how Ida's curse is portrayed through the filmography of the Owl House. As a visual medium, filmography is an essential part of animation's storytelling, and its depiction of chronic illness is no exception. For example, the episode where the curse is first introduced, The Intruder, is framed in a way that resembles a horror movie. The large, hulking owl beast is an object of terror. This aligns with Hollywood's history of portraying chronic illness and disability as something monstrous or reviled. However, that was all before the fact that it's a curse was revealed. The knowledge of it being a curse is actually used to subvert this expectation, with Ida at the end saying,
No one likes having a curse, but yeah, if you take the right steps, it's manageable.
It's humanizing, not terrorizing. However, later during Season 1, it does become an object of pity, as it restricts Ida's power as a witch and ultimately leads to a transformation that would have been permanent should Lilith not have intervened. This does reflect Ida's relationship with her curse during Season 1, though. It's a normal part of her life, but it is still something she's afraid of. Otherwise, she'd have informed King and Luz, her child and her unofficial ward, instead of hiding it from them. This doesn't last, however. When Ida reconciles with her mother in keeping up appearances, it visually shrinks the owl beast from the imposing figure she was running from into a smaller creature she could manage. This signifies that she's healing her fear of her illness, and in the process, finding it's not nearly as threatening as she'd once believed it to be. She also is able to remain somewhat aware during her transformation, which aligns with her earlier comment in the episode.
Calm down, just calm down. The curse acts stronger when you're stressed.
Managing her stress doesn't make the curse disappear or untransform her, but it does keep it from completely controlling her. Likewise, once the beast has shrunken, she's able to communicate with it and reach an agreement with it, presenting chronic illness as something better off understood and worked with, rather than a horrifying monster to be battled as she'd once believed. Not only does it become more stable that way, she gains a degree of control over her transformation, leading to her Harpy Ida power-up, symbolically rewarding her with restored mastery over her body after the curse had altered her normal magical abilities. It is still present, and it's noted that she still needs to take her medication, but she's reached a stage of acceptance with it and feels her body as her own, curse and all. It provides a visual indicator of her newfound homeostasis. The last major visual associated with the curse is its black corrupting effect on Ida's magic. This is strictly a negative visual and has a sinister, foreboding look. It's also consistently associated with moments of suicidal self-sacrifice in the plot. First, when she and Rain attempt to stop Darius and Eberwolf regardless of the cost in Ida's Requiem, and second when she attempts to take Rain's place to sabotage Belos' draining spell in King's Tide. Both cases involve her attempting to give her own life to stop something she feels is larger than her, and it's not rewarded in either. This corruption can therefore be seen metaphorically as punishment for Ida's self-hatred or self-pity, and how she devalues her place in the lives of her companions. It's also notable that this only happens when she attempts to exert herself in ways that her curse has otherwise disabled for her. Since this begins only after she's reached a point of relative stability, it can be seen as a representative of her disregarding her own needs, and as part of her diminished self-worth as a witch, caused by her loss of power and facing severe consequences for it. However, in the first instance, Ida is actively scolded by Rain for it, because she has a family that needs her, reestablishing that this is a negative thing due to her value simply as a person.
Ida, do you have kids?
Then, in the second instance, it's shown as an act of desperation to stop something that would kill her regardless, so it's less of a punishment here, and more a tool used to build stakes. When looking at the filmography of disability and how it's historically been portrayed in Hollywood, Rhonda Black and Laurie Pretz analyzed films about disability through the lens of 7 different stereotypes: pitiable and pathetic, super crip, sinister, evil, and criminal, better off dead, maladjusted, his or her own worst enemy, a burden, and unable to live a successful life. Ida's characterization sometimes plays around with these ideas, but never for long, and it ultimately defies all of them to create a competent but realistic maternal figure. While the curse can be seen in Season 1 as villainized, Ida herself isn't, which already subverts the trope, but it also takes it further in Season 2 when the Owl Beast is developed and reasoned with. It didn't deserve the villain treatment either, since it was also scared and confused. Similarly, she's not pitied for her curse, and she regularly declares herself throughout Season 1
The most powerful witch on the Boiling Isles.
And even then, she avoids the super crip stereotype because of how she's shown to have always been a strong-willed and gifted witch. Her curse and her strength are separate. Ultimately, it serves to normalize her curse, and with it, chronic illness and disability. Taken together, Ida's curse is written with a lot of attention paid to real-world dynamics chronically ill people face. It respects the struggles chronic illness can bring as a form of disability. It dedicates time to how illness can alter family systems, and it does so all while dodging ableist stereotypes and cliches in its narrative and visual language. She's a strong step forward when it comes to positive, realistic representation of what life can be like for those living with chronic illness, especially within children's media, where that representation has historically been lacking. She's well worth studying for how far she's pushed representation of illness on TV, and for the sake of continuing to make strides towards humanizing it in the future.